problems we got, plus non-point source runoff from things that we do. Every time it rains, it's a measure of how well we're shepherding our land. But as far as the point source discharges, we've taken care of virtually every one of them. We have an occasional Ogeechee River incident where we have a major fish kill. But the fact of the matter is it got to the point where a fish kill meant we had some success because it meant we had fish returning to places that they hadn't been before. But over those 50 years, we've just made enormous improvements. And today, around the world, there are 1.1 billion people that don't have access to safe drinking water. There are 2.4 billion people that don't have access to safe sanitation. During the 4 or 5 minutes that I've been talking, 20 children somewhere in the world have died of from waterborne diseases or exposure to waterborne problems. And the issue of direct contact, the standards that were set by the federal government back in 1972 were that we need to have fishable, swimmable waters, and the swimmable has been kind of debated as to what does that mean. But what it means is if there's contact, even secondary contact with surface waters, it's supposed to be safe. You're not supposed to be subject to getting flesh-eating bacteria and that kind of thing. The standards that Gail talked about, the bacteria standard, we tried to get that passed when I was at EPD, and that's been 25 years ago. We just didn't have the data. They didn't have the testing techniques that were available to local governments to use at treatment facilities. So that change is long overdue. We've been working with Liz Booth and the folks at EPD on the other standards. The nitrogen, the ammonia standard, I think, is one we need to be concerned about because it could really impose some serious requirements on folks to upgrade the facilities. But I think when we get a little more information on the temperature and pH variations, I think most of our facilities are going to be able to meet the new requirements with some minor adjustments as opposed to major construction. And that's something we need to be really looking into. Senator, I see you getting edgy and needing to leave. But I did want to express my appreciation for your co-sponsorship of the resolutions that acknowledge the 50th anniversary and also acknowledge the work that the water professionals are doing in the state. And we had ulterior motives in helping draft that legislation and recognizing Georgia Association of Water Professionals and Georgia Rural Water Association's folks, but also our elected officials, the media, the environmental groups, and the general public. We've all had a part in the improvements that have been made, and the continued improvements can only be made with the continued support of you folks, for the folks that run your water and sewer systems. And I am very thankful to Senator Tolleson for his leadership. Senator Jeffries helped basically sponsored the bill along with Senator Tolleson, the resolution, and Senator Jeffries actually had to push it through the House side too because Representative Smith forgot about it, and we got it passed on at the last minute. But we really appreciate the support that we got. And the other part, the second part of the resolution was the way I drafted it. The now therefore part said we're going to declare Hug a Water Professional Day, and it got changed to Thank a Water Professional Day by my deputy who didn't want to be hugged by some people at the Capitol. But Senator, we do appreciate your support on that. Thank you. And that's really all I want. I know you're on a tight budget and tight schedule.
Well, very well then, Jack. We appreciate you joining us today.
Glad to be here.
All right.
And we're always happy to be a resource to y'all.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Jack.
Let's go, Jack.
Do you want to introduce our next speaker?
Yeah, we'll just have one more speaker. Leigh Askew Elkins with the Carl Vinson Institute of Government. This isn't so much a legislative or policy update, but this ACCG, Carl Vinson and other DCA and other groups have long participated. We'll get that passed out for you. You just come on up. With what we created, some 12, how many years ago? The water.
2002.
2002. I was right. 12 years ago.
Yes.
The water toolkit. We're going through a process of updating it. So I've asked her to come and speak briefly. where we're at, and you're spearheading it, and what's coming out in the near future in that regard.
Yes.
Leigh.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here today. Just really quickly, you're going to get a handout that kind of goes through a timeline of the history of the water toolkit. It began in 2002. Actually, it began in 2001 as a box of documents. In 2002, it was produced by the Department of Community Affairs on a CD. And in 2004, it became a website. And then nothing happened. It's still that same website that it was in 2004. And as Senator Tolleson referenced, really this unprecedented period of action around water happened in the state during the past 10 years. And so the website has nothing about state water planning on it. It has nothing about the Water Stewardship Act. Those things have kind of passed it by. So along with ACCG, GMA, Georgia Soil and Water, Keep Georgia Beautiful, and GFA, we've gotten a grant from EPD at the Carl Vinson Institute to kind of spearhead the process of updating the water toolkit. We're going to be redesigning and relaunching the website in September. We did a survey, thanks again to ACCG and GMA and other partners who sent that out for us. And we've got great feedback from that. We've kind of identified the topics that we're going to cover. I've included those down towards the bottom of this sheet. And then we're going to be adding in some video case studies. We're going to be selecting communities that really exemplify excellence in water conservation or excellence in their wastewater treatment processes, and highlight those in both video and written format and have those on the website. The website doesn't look to recreate any information, but we look to connect you from one place to all other places. So if you want information on water conservation, you can come to this site and you'll see what EPD has, what EPA has, what Soil and Water has, what state and local, other state and local entities may have available to you. Again, it's going to relaunch in September, and we're real excited about it. And I've included my email on here. If there are any things that you think of that are important references that you look at often, that we need to make sure we get on there. If you have a case study you'd like to recommend for us to take a look at, or if you know a place that I should go photograph to include on the website, let me know that. We want to make this dynamic and interactive as we can. And like I said, it will remain DCA's website. It's at georgiaplanning.org, and that's where it will stay, and it will be theirs to maintain once we get it updated. So we thank our partners for being part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
That was good.
That's good. Todd, you got anything?
No, sir. We chat almost daily, so.
We talk about it a lot. Thank y'all.
Thank you very much. We'll move right on through the agenda now. At this time, I'm going to ask Todd to see if he's got any other information and updates he'd like to provide on the 2014 legislative session.
No, I think overall, years past, and Senator Tolleson mentioned, in the past decade, we've had an abundance of natural resources issues addressed at the General Assembly. These past 2 years have been relatively quiet. There's significant legislation that's passed, but as far as, the monumental Water Stewardship Act, water planning, we haven't seen that type of legislation. I don't anticipate it next year. I know that the county's Senate Bill 299, particularly in North Georgia, on those 150-foot stream buffers, that was significant. That is something we've worked on as a committee over the past decade, as well as the septic land application. So as far as this committee, its priorities, and y'all are doing fine up at the General Assembly. So they covered the legislative update very well. I appreciate it, and I have nothing else to add, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you. At this time, we will move into the policies, the policies platform and reviews and discussions. And what I'm planning on doing is I'm going to go through and read each heading. And if there's any suggestions, comments, or changes that need to be made, just raise your hand as we go through it. I hope all of you taken an opportunity to read all the different platforms that has been there and see if we need to improve any of them. The first one will be the state water planning. Is any responses, anything that you would like to make to the state water planning?
I think from a staff position, there just need to be a couple of dates changed in there. as well as acknowledging the progress we made through the first round, but nothing substantive. And any of these that I mentioned will be presented to the full committee to vote on at the August meeting.
No questions. Next policy is the interbasin transfers. Anything on interbasin transfers? I see none. The next policy is the stormwater management. Any questions, comments, revisions, anything on the stormwater management? Okay, the next policy is erosion and sedimentation. Anything on the erosion and sedimentation policy? I see none. Next policy is on the septic systems and the septic management.
I would just recommend a couple of changes as opposed to calling them septic systems. Septic systems, we'll bring it up to date and call them on-site sewage systems and septic management. And then also, if you look down at the 5th bullet, under that policy position, that position was obtained last year through that septic land application bill that I mentioned, House Bill 741. We were successful, so that piece can be removed from the policy platform, and I'll propose that to the committee in August.
Any other questions, comments?
Okay, if you look down 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th bullet, we support legislation requiring the EPD director. Not only have we supported it, but we were successful in its passage, thus that support could be removed from the platform. That legislation was just passed.
All righty. The next policy is the TMDLS, total maximum daily loads. Any questions, comments? I see none. Next policy is on water reuse and conservation. Comments? See none. Going to the next policy is on the EPD wastewater discharge permits, the administrative appeal procedures. Comments, concerns, recommendations? I see none. Therefore, we'll go to the land side, and we'll begin with the solid waste management policy. Any revisions, additions, or deletions?
They've been awfully quiet the past 3 years, our friends in the solid waste management community. I'm not sure why that is, but it's about that time. We might have some surprise legislation. I really don't know what it is, but it's been a little too long. But y'all hear about it when it comes out. I'll let you know. I think we have it pretty well covered, or you all have it pretty well covered with this policy position, though.
Okay, moving on to the next policy is the Georgia Land Conservation Program. Revisions, comments, questions? See none, hear none. Moving on, the mine reclamation. Revisions, comments? I see none. We'll move to the financing category. The policy will be the environmental program financing. Any additions, deletions, or corrections?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Todd, on these items in the platform that we urged or suggested,
this particular issue is of concern, obviously, in the Kaolin region. I can tell you that we haven't had much success and probably will not have much success anytime in the near future on some of the policy positions recently adopted. I mean, I guess if you're asking, have we been successful? No. Is there interest at the General Assembly? No. I mean, there's not enough interest to get a bill passed. We'll try that sort of thing, but there's obviously there's a lot of provisions in here that we've not been able to achieve, and that's all guided by, whether or not we can get legislation passed. I think a lot of times what we try to do when any of these are introduced to the platform, recognizing that as staff, is ask the policy committee members, is if you recommend it, hey, say, do you have one of your legislators that's willing to sponsor it? And most oftentimes they do not, which leaves us in the unattainable position of not only trying to attain what may not be an attainable policy platform position, but not having the host members' legislative delegation on board in the process, which makes it all the more difficult, Scott.
That's part of the reason why I asked. I mean, we've in the past few years, we've trimmed some of that kind of stuff down, so I'm just curious.
We've trimmed a bit of it down, and at any point through any of this process, if y'all want to eliminate one of these positions, now would be the appropriate time to recommend it. Then, of course, the committee, when it convenes in August, would take the vote to do so.
Anything else?
Jack Dozier, Georgia Association of Water Professionals.
Anytime you open up a provision of the act by introducing legislation, if it's not something that's really, really, really important, you take a huge risk of opening up your act and providing vehicles for all kinds of stuff you don't want. And Todd says we haven't had any success because we haven't pushed some of these things. We as a group, I think, have taken the wise route. The best legislation that can happen most years is no legislation.
That is correct. And the other thing is, you're right. Once you introduce a bill, there's no telling what's going to happen to it. And the two other things is, a lot of times you have to wait till another bill, either sponsored by leadership or someone else is interested, or the momentum, unless it's an ACCG priority, and then work with what's out there, or what they're working on, and get bills amended. We look at all the bills all the time to try to find, for lack of a better word, vehicles on which to place our issues. And in these areas, there simply haven't been there. But it's very dangerous to open up a law, particularly when you know it's not going to pass like it is in the current form. You may end up doing the organization and our members more harm than good. But you raise a very good point, Jack.
Any other comments concerning the environmental program financing? Anything to do with financing? If not, we'll move to the next heading, and the next policy platform is on the air concerning monitors. Any suggestions, questions, or comments concerning the monitors? See none, hear none. On other issues, Environmental Enforcement Authority, is any suggestions, corrections, or additions to this particular platform? I see none, hear none. The next one is citizens' lawsuits. Any suggestions to this particular platform? Todd, you want to make any comments on that particular one?
Not on that particular one, but coming back to Scott's earlier question, you asked the question of our successes. We've had varying success on the redirection of fees. 2 years ago, we got legislation passed that basically puts a formula into law that if a fee that is collected for a specific purpose does not go towards its designated purpose, in the following years it is reduced proportionally to what was redirected. You don't pay it. However, though the governor did sign that piece of legislation, we've got a rare but coveted signing statement, which again rarely happens at the General Assembly, acknowledging that while the governor believed in the rest of the bill, he didn't believe in that particular part, and those signing it had no intention of following the law that was just being put into place. No one has challenged that. I'm not saying that ACCG would or not, but I mean, we have had a success. I think y'all's comments to the General Assembly as evidence, Senator Tolleson, is they're aware that the fees are being redirected to go toward non-designated purposes. They've increased about 20–30% this year, but I would call that a success. We've got their ear, they're working toward it. But it's difficult in the budget process. And y'all often don't want to have y'all's budgets dedicated or have the leeway to move funds around, and that's what we're dealing with up there. So we have had some successes in that area. And with that, Tom Gail, Georgia Municipal Association.
I would just, two things. One, I would like to applaud the tenacity of Todd and county commissioners in working hard to get that legislation through the process. I know that the House of Representatives to this day would continue to support that position that Todd and ACCG built to accomplish.